Okay, so we're going to do an exercise called takeoffs and landings. This is an exercise to exaggerate the pinkie's job in the lower portion of the bow so that we can help alleviate the crunchiness that is pretty typical down near the frog and can sometimes cause us to not want to even go there. We just play in this portion or even end up getting stuck at the tip. And unfortunately, we're going to have to play down there at some point. We're going to have a long enough bow stroke, long enough note value that we're going to have to get down to that frog area. And I've seen so many students just, trying to hold that whole note or something, and they just say, I don't have any more bow. And literally they've got half a bow, but it's just so scary to go down there. So this will help get rid of all of those fears, hopefully, and get us really confident with this area. So what's happening is we are shifting to the pinkie needing to balance the bow. So just to start this exercise, we need to make sure that we have a curl in our pinkie and that the pinkie can just basically hold up the bow when we're parallel to the floor. Now, some people's pinkies are so weak that even doing that is too much, and it's nothing personal. It's just that what are we doing with the pinkies in day-to-day life? Maybe if we type, with all of our fingers, we use them a little bit there, but otherwise the pinkie is always working with other fingers in grasping something or holding something. So it's really not doing something as extreme as just holding the bow. And if we really want to exaggerate even this, we can lift the index finger and just see, does the pinkie, we'll see stuff like this, it starts to buckle, or we press it out, or all sorts of things. Sometimes it's just one of the joints, sometimes it's the whole thing. So I would really start with this, and then assuming this checks out, then you can go to step 2, which is our basic takeoff. And so the basic takeoff, we're going to just isolate that bottom third of the bow. And for most of us, that is about where our arm is. It's maybe square or right angle at our elbow, or just a little bit kind of an acute angle there. So I would say for me, I have longer arms, and so more the square position for me is a little bit further out. So I would just go with whatever that sort of bottom third is for you. And then just, you're going to take off and you're going to keep the bow really shallow to the string. So it's very much like an airplane taking off. We don't see the airplane charging down the runway and then suddenly like a hovercraft, just like lift off into the sky. So we see a lot of times when we first start this exercise, students that are just doing one of these. And that's, it's better than nothing, but what we really want to do is we want to emphasize that airplane taking off over here somewhere to the left. And then we really feel, there is a very similar feeling to what we had here. And then we come back on again, very shallow. We're gradually, this is a very trained pilot, the one you want to fly with, who then lets you back down on the string just so nicely. And so we just do this a little bit. Could be any string, could be any finger, wherever you want to go. You notice I'm staying on the string here, and then I'm taking off here. On and off, on and off. And so that's just kind of the basic takeoff and landing. And we're just noticing that as soon as we go off the string, that pinkie is working. As soon as we start to get on the string, basically until we get out to here, we feel gradually less and less pinkie, or when we take off, more. And so we're just doing a little training exercise of that. But then to take that further, we would just start to stay a little bit shallow to the string, not taking off as far. Still taking off to the left though, not just coming out straight. And then gradually I'm just right on this string, and we don't hear the crunchiness that we might be used to there. Kind of magical. So then the third step. Hopefully we've been used to already doing some colay fingers. If we haven't done colay yet, that would be a prerequisite to this one. So colay basically is a stroke that we don't really use in isolation too much, and there'll be other videos and stuff that I have specifically about this. But we do use it in connection to a lot of bow strokes, like the martelé bow stroke. It's definitely in the mix there with spiccato or bouncing bow stroke. stuff like that. But we can definitely do a colay that's just independent, and what it means basically is to glue. So we are essentially doing a little move where we're going to dip the bow into the string. I'm using an up bow right now, so I'm going to dip the bow into the string, and then we see the fingers curled. It's a very active finger stroke where the fingers curl, and that makes that little up bow. I lift back off the string, and we get that little up bow colay. I could do this anywhere in the bow, but a lot of times colay is at the frog. It's just a very articulate stroke, and it's using the fingers, like I said, very actively. And I could do a down bow the same way. I start with curled fingers in that case, and then dip into the string, so fingers are lengthening. So just making sure that you can move the bow in that way. So just doing like some colay motions in the air would be the prerequisite. So it could be like I'm bouncing on a trampoline. You could use that as a reference point. Just making sure that we can move the bow, and a lot of it is in the thumb muscle. So, and kind of that webbing of the thumb. So we want to make sure we can do that, and then we want to include that with the takeoff. So we still take off, but then as soon as we leave the string, we're going to, instead of like have the whole arm take us off, we're just going to leave the string, and it's the fingers that curl us into the air. And then similarly, as we go back onto the string, it's the fingers that lengthen us back down onto the string. So it's just like a little bit more advanced colay kind of takeoff, colay takeoff. And now this is really getting us not only the pinky strength that we're going to need to do that clean bow change and tone at the frog, but really be able to quickly change strings, get that really clean bow change sound. You know, if the fingers are just kind of stiff, which is what we were kind of doing when we were just taking off and the arm was really leading us into the air, it's still getting you a lot of the nice tone that we want, but it might be a little bit choppy in the bow change or in a string crossing. And so there, oftentimes into the down bow, we might get like a jitter sound or something like that. Could be maybe a risk of that. So definitely don't move through all of these steps too quickly. We definitely want to make sure that the pinky is strong enough, because also curling under that weight of the bow is a lot for it. So if it's just having trouble just kind of holding the bow here without the buckling and stuff, and holding the bow here without the buckling, then we definitely have to work on that first. But yeah, then that's the same kind of progression with that. So we're gonna go off and curl into the air, straighten back into the string, and then gradually not as much, so closer and closer to the string. Still doing the curling though, barely coming off now, but still curling, and now we see I'm back on the string. And the fingers are working to make that really nice and clean. Now, one thing, especially on the E string, that we need to watch, and part of it's just because we need to get around the instrument with the C-bout, but also to take some weight off, we can just be on not full hair. So we could be on the outer edge of the hair. We never want to be on the inner edge of the hair, or we might get some slippage. So if we go from that middle spot and we can do our takeoff, and we start to just rotate, it's the wrist. It's not like I'm rotating the bow in my hand. I'm just rotating the wrist up and off. So now the hair is facing me a little bit, and I come back on. On and off, that same idea with curling the fingers. And let's try that on the E string, because that makes the most sense here. The E is also a very delicate string, so, and then we finally get back on the string. And so we might play in that lower portion, at least the lower few inches, actually not flat hair, and it's certainly not on the E string flat hair. We're just going to be jamming ourselves into the C-bout. So that's another additional idea for just getting crunchiness out of the bottom part of the bow. But I will say for that tilting, and it's just, you can, even if you're not really worried about tilting at the bottom part of the bow, but you just want that as a possibility for maybe some dynamics, getting softer dynamics down the road or something, just to emphasize that the tip of the pinky really needs to be on the palm side of the stick and not right on top. As soon as we start to tip over, what's the pinky going to do? Just kind of fall off the front there. So that's very important just in general, so we have a little bit more flexibility and just that ability to sort of weave. I like the tipping of the bow, tilting of the bow to kind of weave the right sort of phrasing that we're looking for and stuff like that. But yeah, also just very practically for just, again, having that nice pinky curl that we want. So gets the pinky a little closer to the hand too. So those are takeoffs and landings, and that could be a progression just over the course of one practice if we already feel pretty strong in our pinky, or that could be something that you would return to and just kind of progress along with maybe over the course of even a few weeks or a month. I mean, I've definitely seen some weaker pinkies, some stronger pinkies, and I would say the weaker pinkies, since it's such a small muscle group, around the pinky, I've even seen it on my own pinky, they kind of strengthen up a lot faster than we might expect, actually. Just there's not as much that has to strengthen up being so small and stuff. So we can get a lot out of, just some regular, consistent practice, and then maybe a little bit of maintaining that. If we haven't been playing in the frog area for a while, I've seen some students, we've been doing some faster pieces and just stuff that's more appropriate higher in the bow, and then suddenly there's a piece that has some longer bow strokes and we're going like, I thought we worked this out. Well, actually, we haven't really needed to play in the bottom part of the bow for several months. No wonder. So it's just something to kind of keep in your arsenal of just like kind of a practice routine, a warm-up routine, just some bottom area of the bow strokes, even if you're not using it in your pieces, just so that you have that ability once there's suddenly a nice long stroke and you really want to get that nice tone all the way down to the frog. So I love that exercise. Hope you enjoy it, and yeah, see you next time.